Welcome, everybody. My name is Martin Natter, and this will be a joint presentation with Andreas Mild. Today we are going to report on the successful application of a newly developed segmentation, targeting, and positioning tool at Tele.ring. Tele.ring is a major mobile phone provider at the Austrian market. Tele.ring CEO Michael Krammer, as well as our colleagues Wagner and Alfred Taudes, have also contributed to this presentation. We will start our presentation with a description of the market situation as well as the specific situation of Tele.ring at the beginning of this project. Next, we will outline our motivation for developing a new segmentation, targeting, and positioning tool and describe the implemented methodology and features. Andreas will then take over and describe how this tool supported Tele.ring in the development of their new tariff Formel 10. The final part of our presentation will deal with the measurement of profit impacts, targeting precision, and the organizational impacts. Operators in the Austrian mobile phone market find themselves in a very competitive environment. This figure shows the Herfindahl index for 19 different European countries. The Herfindahl index is a concentration measure, lower values indicating stronger competition. According to this measure, Austria is ranked third in terms of competitive pressure. In more competitive markets, it is difficult to gain market shares without destroying the price, and an appropriate segmentation-based positioning strategy may become an important success factor. The market share situation of the 5 major providers over the last 9 years are reflected in this figure. The market penetration currently is at 106%. The market turnover is approximately $4.8 billion. Mobilcom, the former monopolist, still has the highest market share. We can see that earlier market entrants have bigger market shares than later ones. This figure clearly reflects that every new entrant has immediately stopped the growth of the previous entrant. This was true for Mobilcom when T-Mobile entered the market, for T-Mobile when provider 1 entered, and for One when Tele.ring entered the market. Hutchison entered the market slowly but has recently gained significant market shares. For Tele.ring, it was clear that something had to be done to stop this pattern. Hutchison's potential new customers were the clear target when this project started. However, it was neither clear who these customers were nor how to get them. Now look at the internal situation of Tele.ring. Due to this strong competition, tariff life cycles were getting shorter over time, and they're currently between 6 and 8 months. New product development cycle times, on the other hand, remained too long at Tele.ring. Long lead times are especially a problem when the market situation changes rapidly. One source of the inefficient new product development process were the long back and forth phases between business analysts, marketing managers, and top management at Tele.ring. Management expected that our tool could improve the quality of decision making and provide a better view on the market. However, when this project started, it was not clear that an STP tool could also help to design the new product development process more time efficiently. Having said something about the market situation and the internal challenges, I will now turn to our motivation for developing a new segmentation, targeting, and positioning tool. Splitting the market into homogeneous segments, selecting one or several appropriate targeting groups, and positioning the new offer are the 3 major steps that marketing engineers go through when they apply the SDP approach. A large number of different segmentation and mapping procedures is already available. There are also several algorithms and tools at hand which do a good job in combining segmentation and mapping tasks at the same time. We were quite sure that tools such as PrefMap3, Discovery, Multiclass, or others would sufficiently support the new product development process. So why did we decide to develop a new SDP tool given all the existing tools? The major reason for that was that we found no tools available that integrated all necessary steps of this SDP process in a managerial, applicable, and useful manner. Therefore, we jointly developed this tool with practitioners in two major phases. In the first phase, we identified relevant information, functionalities, and relationships that should be provided by such a tool. Based on 50 personal interviews conducted with marketing managers that are involved in the new product development process. In the second phase, we investigated the usefulness and the intuitiveness of these different graphical formats based on user feedback and on experimental settings. Let me summarize the 5 most important criteria that we have identified that managers require and that we should consider if we want them to use such methods. First, the graphical format should display comprehensive information about brands, attributes, and consumer heterogeneity on a single map and in an intuitive manner. Second, the format should be limited to 2-dimensional distance maps, even when from a statistical point of view, 3 or more dimensions are preferable. Third, users demand a single and intuitive fit measure that indicates whether to trust a solution or not. Fourth, the segments are of high practical relevance and segment structures should therefore be displayed within the map. However, found that significant segment overlap is confusing and leads to rejection of such methods. And fifth, a link to additional data is essential for the teams jointly working on the project and can help to avoid long back and forth phases between the business analysts, marketing managers, and the top management. Positioning experiments and specific views on products, attributes, or specific regions on such a map are important factors and increase the tool's usefulness. This figure shows a typical market map for one of several artificial data sets that we have generated during the development of the tool. Preferences of 800 customers are shown in terms of segment-specifically colored dots. For ease of interpretation, we had to omit any vector representations, and all interpretation is based on distances and label size. Label sizes of attribute 1 and 2, for instance, indicate that attribute 1 is, in general, more important than attribute 2. The distance between brand C and E, for example, is relatively small, indicating that C and E are competing about the same customers in segment 4. The overall goodness of fit measure, aggregating 5 partial submeasures displayed in the right-hand corner, for this data set are indicating a good fit. The first 3 submeasures are transformed stress measures in the same direction as R². They indicate whether a solution well reflects the competitive relationships between brands, customer similarity, and brand or attribute assessments of the customers. The 4th criterion indicates variance accounted for by the segmentation solution, and the 5th criterion indicates whether the overlap regions are acceptably small. For measuring the overlap, we have split the map into a grid. Sectors with customers from different segments are denoted as overlapping sectors. Too many overlapping sectors complicate interpretation and working with such maps. The overall goodness of fit is the average of these 5 partial measures. All methods as well as the graphical user interface were implemented in MATLAB. The input matrix displayed here is built from rank-ordered data from which we form indices to measure customer and brand heterogeneity. The first step of the algorithm minimizes the 3 first goodness of fit measures just mentioned before. This step yields the positions of the customers, brands, and attributes on a 2-dimensional distance map. What we often find here, however, is that the solution shows overlapping segments. Therefore, in the next step, the segmentation procedure determines segment memberships by also considering the trade-off between the variance accounted for of the segmentation solution and the overlap. Besides an intuitive format, interactive features turned out important for jointly analyzing ad hoc ideas and hypotheses in the new product development team. The new product development team needs an easy access to additional information related to regions or objects on the map. On the left-hand side, you see that the user has the possibility to select additional functionalities concerning segments, individual preferences, or products and attributes. Often, however, the analyst wants detailed information profiling specific brands, attributes, or customers. This figure, for instance, shows a profile for brand F, summarizing 4 relevant views of on that brand. First, customer heterogeneity. For this brand shows that F often ended up as the 2nd or 3rd choice only. In the next step, one would look at the specific preferences of this interesting group. Second, the most important competitors are shown. Here, brand G is by far the strongest competitor, and the positioning strategy should take this fact into account. Third, preferences for the selected brand are shown in the different segments. Here we can see that brand F is well positioned and accepted in segment 1. And fourth, specific information about relevant attributes for customers of this selected brand are shown and given a direct implication on what to optimize for this brand. After this brief description of our modeling purposes and aims, I would now like to hand over to Andreas, who will describe how this tool has supported Tele.ring in developing its new tariff, Formel 10. Andreas.
Thank you, Martin. The project started with computer-aided personal interviews of mobile phone users. The respondents were asked about their product preferences, attribute importances, and also were asked about media habits and some demographical information. We used a stratified random sample, which was representative for the Austrian market in terms of age, geographical region, and market share. The segmentation procedure uses the product preferences, attribute importances, and expenditures as segmentation variables. This first analysis focuses on perceived customer similarity. It can be seen that Hutchison and One are situated close to Tele.ring, making them their strongest competitors. The largest distance to Tele.ring is attributed to Mobilcom, the former monopolist in the Austrian market. The distances between brands and attributes indicate the relative importance of an attribute for customers who prefer a certain brand. For Mobilcom customers, for instance, the provider's image constitutes an important choice criterion. In this view of the market, customers are presented as points in the distance map. The distance to brand and attributes indicate their relative preference and importance. The color of the customers indicate the membership to a specific segment. In this case, we have 4 segments. The upper right chart shows the segment size, while the base chart shows the average expenditure for each segment. The large label size and its isolated position indicate that the location of the attribute base fee might be an interesting targeted position. In the targeting step, the project team found out that customers who care most about the base fee might be, in fact, an interesting target position. This analysis proposes the new position for Tele.ring. From the bar chart, it can be seen that the attribute base fee shows the highest absolute and relative importance. This view into the market helped management to further specify the targeted segment. The upper charts indicate the segment position in the preference map. The charts in the middle present the percentages of most important attributes, most important products, and the lower charts present the percentages of the most important attributes. The first segment was excluded as a target group because their most wanted attribute was the tariff to the own net. Tele.ring already offered the lowest price with regard to this feature. Looking at segment 4, this was also excluded because here we have a very strong focus on the provider's image with Mobilcom showing the highest market share, reflecting its high brand value. The remaining segments 2 and 3 were selected as target segments. It was decided to introduce a new tariff with lowest possible base fee and that products' attributes should be comprehensible. In the next step, segment-specific choice-based conjoint models were used to fine-tune the new tariff and to estimate the expected share of preference. Finally, a product with a base fee of 0 and a 10-cent fee per minute to connections to all possible providers was favored. This was the first tariff of this kind in Europe. The project team found the graphical format also useful in convincing stakeholders outside the project, like the owners. 32% share of preference was projected in the 2 segments as compared to a 13% market share of Tele.ring in the month before introduction of the new tariff. In the last stage of the project, advertising agencies were also provided with the results of this analysis. The outcome was an advertising that focuses on the low base fee and the easy-to-calculate tariff. Customers can track their average minute consumption on their bills and were asked to compare this with the new tariff. So don't be confused, this is German, but it should be easy to follow anyway.
Hallo, mein Name ist Barbara Jung, ich telefoniere mit T-Mobile, 183 Minuten im Monat österreichweit.
Tele.ring rechnet vor, Österreich rechnet nach.
Junge Frau, teilen Sie Ihre Gesprächsminuten einfach durch 10. Und schon wissen Sie, was das mit Tele.ring Formel 10 kosten würde, also 18,30 €. Denn es gibt keine Grundgebühr. Kleiner Tipp, vergleichen Sie das doch mal mit Ihrer Rechnung.
Weg mit dem Speck. Tele.ring.
The following slides will present various ways of benchmarking new product success. This first chart shows the market share of new customers on a monthly basis. It can be seen that Tele.ring's market share increases to 33% in the month of introduction of the new tariff and maintains a high level of market share for the consecutive month. We have compared this increase in market share to 7 other new product introductions in this market. So all new product introductions under consideration show a certain life cycle pattern with an increase in market share right after a new product introduction. This figure shows the mean increase in market share compared to the month before introduction. Well, so the red line is Tele.ring's increase, and the white one is the mean of 7 other ones. So the value of Tele.ring clearly outperforms the mean value of these 7 others with an average of 14.6 percentage points, additional market share over the average life cycle of 7 months. This resulted in an additional 46,000 customers. Based on the average customer lifetime value, this results in an above average new product profit of some 28 million US dollars. Let's have a look which competitors lost most through the introduction of the new tariff. Please recall the representation of the competitive situation. Hutchison and One are located closest to Tele.ring. This bar chart compares the market share 6 months before and 6 months after a new product introduction. It can be seen that the closest competitors show a decrease in market share of 24 and 31% as compared to a loss of just 4 and 9% of the other competitors. Finally, we want to estimate the precision of the targeting. If we assume no effect of targeting, we would expect that new customers come from the various segments proportional to the size of the segment. This is illustrated with the blue bars. An optimal targeting, in contrast, could look like the 2 red bars, indicating that all new customers belong to the targeted segment 2 or 3. We have conducted a similar study in 2005 and 2006, but of course there is no direct measurement of segment membership of new Tele.ring customers. However, we will use the change in the distribution of attribute importances to evaluate targeting precision. So, the first bar in this chart illustrates the distribution of most important product attributes for Tele.ring customers in 2005. The next 4 bars show the same for the various segments. So you see there's quite big difference. For example, segment 1 focuses on the price into the own net, segment 2 on the base fee, and so on. The last bar shows the distribution in 2006. So the question is, how can we explain the change in preferences? Again, if we assume no effect of targeting, we have to assume that new customers are distributed according to segment size. And this would, of course, mean that there is no change in the distribution of the most important product feature. In doing so, this model arrives at a deviation of 28 percentage points. Next, we have formulated a linear program that minimizes this error or this deviation by estimating the most likely distribution of new customers, reducing this error measure to 8.6%. So it can be seen that the proportion of customers from the targeted segments 2 and 3 are much higher than their expected value. Thus, targeting precision can be estimated with around 90%. We would like to finish our presentation with a short summary of important features and the organizational impact by Tele.ring's CEO Michael Krammer.
Tele supported us in understanding the different preferences of customers and developing an extremely successful tariff for specific target groups called the Tele.ring Formula 10. Another important element in the development process of new tariffs with Tele is the cooperation between different departments. Various departments have been supported by numerous analyses of Tele, such as the top management, of course, in finding company and product strategy, the product management in developing the best possible tariffs, and the marketing department in creating an appropriate communication strategy. Daily is an extraordinary marketing decision tool. It opens a new perspective in the product development process for us. In saturated and highly competitive markets, it is necessary to know more about customer wishes and preferences than traditional approaches can deliver. With the interactivity in daily, it is possible to develop new products that meet the customer preferences. The Tele.ring Formula 10 tariff has clearly demonstrated how to develop new products nowadays.
So thank you very much.
Thanks very much for an outstanding presentation and a very impressive bit of work. I noted that you spoke about 50 interviews with managers in terms of usability and the top 5 criteria for the methodology. My own experience with this kind of methodology is almost invariably in the top 2 or 3, there's discussion about competitive response. In other words, if we move our positioning to here, what will it do to our competitors? Can you say something about competitive response or how you might address that?
Okay. In this case, I mean, that is a very important question, because if it's strategic decisions, you always expect some competitive reactions. However, this is, as we have seen, we have relatively short life cycles here, between 6 and 8 months currently, and the operations that are necessary to implement a competitive reaction also take some time. So they would need at least, I think, 2 or 3 months before actively reacting and having prepared all the advertising and so on. And as we have seen from the life cycle, here it usually starts moving up in the beginning, and at the position, let's say, when they are on the top, it's already over. And at that point of time, in this case, Tele.ring would bring in the new tariff anyway. So it is an important topic, and we think it is even more important in markets where it's more strategic decisions. This is almost this is tactical pricing rather, and I think that we could introduce some competitive modeling if we take the choice-based conjoint models and set up some Nash equilibrium or things like that. There is actually a grant that we have won recently that analyzes competitive reactions and tries to link then back the maps to these results. But this is ongoing research currently in Vienna from my former colleagues, and we do not have any results currently to that.
Herr Kollege, what you were saying is the short life cycle, it's a dynamic environment. To what extent are MDS techniques, which in my perception are static techniques, are they suitable for this type of markets? Because you say in a few months things have already become outdated, so you use a static technique to analyze dynamic markets.
I think that the market is really dynamic, but and what changes is the choice of the customers at which provider they really take the new offer. But on the other hand, the preferences and the important attributes stay the same for longer periods of time. And I think if a competitor reacts, for instance, you can also consider that in the MDS model or reposition that according to our models. So I think you would not get something like cross-price elasticities or so, which would tell you how to build up a pricing over time or how to incorporate the competitive strength. But I think you can have a good impression of what is the possibilities also that the competitors can do depending on their current position. And what we have seen from the recent survey is that Tele.ring has really moved towards this base fee. However, the base fee is still an important feature. So the others have less space open to choose their optimal position. So I think that is, of course, a different approach, and I think probably one should do both, but this is one of the things they didn't do before.
Perhaps related to that is, how many new insights can we get from a two-dimensional map, which you have shown? You now took an interesting and important new insight from the map, but if you say this map is, you know, in a dynamic environment, say it's relatively static, how could this map create new ideas for the next wave once it has been copied? So the general point is, two-dimensional map, managerially useful, but may not be very, may not create a lot of new insights. Perhaps one or two ideas. How can you go further with such a fairly simple representation of the marketplace?
Well, I think what we have seen is that the two-dimensional representation of this market was very useful in a way that all had the same view on the market. We could also easily implement a three-dimensional cube or whatever, but then everyone starts turning it around and rotation, and everyone has a new view on the market. And on the other hand, we provide several different views on other relevant aspects of this market, so that you always have this two-dimensional map in mind, but you can look at the different perspectives in various ways. So it is two-dimensional, but there are several aspects, as you have seen also with the profiling of attributes or products, that increase the information in an easy and communicatable way.
The organization must have changed quite a bit. This was a new innovation, and you're also in a marketplace in which you talked about, in which decision-making has to take place very, very quickly. Can you comment on how, let's say, any major barriers to this new way of thinking and how you overcame them?
Well, in fact, one big change in the process of developing new products was that the new product development team really acted as a team and were sitting together and talking about the same thing for the first time, because this was something like a common language that they could use, talking about the map, talking about the positions. So it was very, very easy to do ad hoc analysis of new product ideas. So the final, the tariff that they finally arrived at was, of course, not the first idea they had, but it was like fine-tuning and extending the ideas. And it was really an advantage to have all the team together, and without going back and forth to different departments, making new analysis and going back to a team assessment of a new idea. So this really increased and speed up the process of developing